Hey everyone, and welcome to Open Finance Successes, our new podcast where we talk about how APIs are changing the open banking and open finance ecosystem globally. And our usual guests for the show, we've got Mariana, Jose, and David. And I'm your host, Mark Boyd from Platformable. I use the pronouns he and him. Okay, it's great to be here. I'm going to share with you our first case study. So what we're going to do is a round of looking at a case study of successes that have happened with using APIs for either Open Bank or Open Finance. And then I'd love to get your input on why you think it's a success, how it's happened, what other people can learn from it. So here, let's jump to our first case study. So we've got Bank Rakyat Indonesia, Bank BRI, and they've been able to use APIs to be able to enable credit scoring and also bank services to be delivered by branchless agents across some of the most remote regions in the archipelago. And so that's not only meant that BRI has reached new customers, but they've also got a new revenue source through offering the credit scoring as a paid service and so on. So is this a compelling sort of use case for a bank anywhere in the world, or do they need certain requirements? How would you sell this sort of success to another bank, Jose?
Thanks, Mark. So, well, I will answer like two different aspects of the business case, right? So first, is it compelling? Yes, it is. More for banks that serve on their bank areas. Okay, so if like in this case that we're in Indonesia, we have a bank that will need to deploy a lot of resources, spend a lot of money for even creating rural banking offices, but now they can do so through APIs and reach so much more people through their mobile phones. I think that's really a win-win. It's a win for the bank because through the APIs is able to reach the people without spending so much money, and it's a win for all the prospective customers because through their own mobile phone, through their own favorite apps, they will be able to reach the bank. Whereas before it was really difficult for them to reach the bank. So for me, that's a no-brainer. Now, if you ask me, like I'm from a Spanish bank, and in Spain, do this financial inclusion is sellable? It is from the point of view that it helps sustainability. And now sustainability is the next big trend. But it's difficult to defend in a business case the inclusion use case because you know that we are subject or we are tied to really how to say we have too many people watching us in open banking and in embedded finance. How much are we spending and how do we monetize? For these cases, monetization is not the most important driver, and you have to make sure your bank understands that because if not, it's really difficult to push financial inclusion use case. So I think I will allow my colleagues to
I was
talk
just
and we
trying to
can
quickly look
revisit.
up the level of bank inclusion in Spain, and that I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but it's pretty high. It's over 80%. So it is hard to sort of push that. What about though the story of like where when a bank is considering closing branches in some areas, and even in Spain where you've got some smaller rural towns and the branch is a big investment. Do you see in a future point where a bank is going to be, we can provide all these services because we've got the APIs available, so then we can have either a digital bank or work with partners through open banking to provide those services, and therefore we'll make the decision to close that branch? Do you think, is that where the alignment is?
Well, I think the closing of the branches is happening anyway,
Yeah.
no matter we have APIs or not. And it's a matter that the percentage of digitalization, at least in Spain, is already high. And frankly speaking, people that go to the branch, the average age is quite high, right? So
Yeah.
the youngsters don't go to the branches. So there is a social change or shift on the way of interacting with the banks. That's why I always talk about embedded finance, that there is not a active demand of embedded finance, but there is a passive demand on embedded finance,
Right.
because the youngsters, they are getting used to pay through the I don't know like how to say, like Twitter, or pay through the social app, and they are used to that. They don't know there is an API behind, but they are getting used to do banking without going to the bank. So bank is for us, that we are traditional people, let's say, and not for the youngsters. And the banks are betting for the young generations. That's why we are closing branches.
So
Of
then
course,
this
it's a
part of the
process.
story from BRI where it says bank extended Bank BRI's services to new users in areas to new users basically. So that's the younger people who don't want to have a relationship with the bank, or don't see, that branch as part of, their grocery store, their library, their usual, like the infrastructure that they would visit on a regular basis and build that relationship, like some of us maybe had when we were younger. And instead just want it to be present wherever they are, whether that's on WhatsApp or social media, or
Yeah.
when they're looking at online at stuff.
Yeah, and banks need to shift their mindset. So it's not that banks will disappear, it's that we will interact with our customers in a different way, most likely through the experiences of third parties partners.
Right. How much work is it, David, to shift then? If this is what's happening with BRI, and this is we're using this as sort of a global example of what's possible, then and another bank wants to follow a similar strategy, what do they have to invest in, or what are they thinking about as far as the technology stack?
Well, here in this case, we have a constraint due to Indonesian regulation. That is that all the API platform needed to support all this should be on-prem. But in a general case, in which this constraint doesn't exist, API platforms can be deployed in different scenarios. You have hybrid deployments, you have on-prem deployments, as in this case. You also have everything on SaaS. So what you need, of course, is an API platform. You have different deployment scenarios. There's no problem on that. Why do you need an API platform? Because you are going to manage APIs. So you need a central point to consume and expose data. This central point is an API, and an API should be managed and governed. Why? Because you have to deal with security, you have to deal with traffic, with authentication, authorization, and many other policies. So this is the point. That's why you need an API platform. Also, having an API management platform allows you to reuse the APIs, and this reuse of APIs increases the possibility of development more and more apps on top of those APIs that will allow third-party integration, which is something that we want to achieve.
Right. And then here you can see they've said credit scoring available via an API as a paid service. How is that? Would that be the first? Like, so if you were doing APIs, when do you bring that in? If you started with a credit scoring API, and you wanted to monetize it, do you put that paid the component where you can subscribe to that API in the first place, or do you want to watch how it's used first? What do you see normally in previous implementations? How's that done?
Okay, what you will need in order to exploit those APIs and build apps on top of that. One point that is very important is developer experience. You also have to have a good catalog or API marketplace where APIs can be consumed. which is the best option if an API marketplace of an API portal? It depends. It depends on the final aim of your strategy. Both approaches can be valid, but you will need to deep dive in your real requirements. It's not you can build your business model on top of both solutions, but in order to choose one of them, you need to deep dive.
Right. Okay, cool. But API management platforms can do that monetization angle as well.
Yeah, that one. The API portal can be integrated or can be plugged into the API management portal and also the API marketplace. So that's no problem on that. But you will need to make a deeper understanding. You will need a deeper understanding of the situation in order to design your own platform. But what you will need for sure is an API management platform.
Right. It's interesting also that you say those technical decisions are about understanding the regulatory environment first before you can make some of those technical decisions. And Mariana, so with the use case, it's looking at so to me, it also tells a story about open banking and open finance are going to fundamentally shift how we do things in society. What are the lessons or what are you learning from here as far as this example?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Well, Indonesia is a very good example of what we are seeing in emerging economies, no? And we can see, for example, at different levels, what are the benefits that a society is gaining with these new business models and with this new technology. For example, we can see at a country level in Indonesia and countries like this, which are developing, the 95% of payments are done in cash. So API connections are really building a bridge between the digital and the physical worlds. And that is obviously contributing to financial inclusion. We have here some interesting numbers from Indonesia, from the World Bank, that says that bank account ownership in this country has increased from 20% in 2011 to 52% in 2021. And 2021, by the way, is the year when the authority issued the standard API for banking, right? So yeah, what we're seeing is materially this the financial exclusion is decreasing now. So that is at a country level. So APIs are contributing to this to make it shorter, the financial exclusion. What are we seeing at a consumer level? It's very interesting also because we're talking here, for example, of a country of thousands that is compounded by thousands of islands. So what we're seeing is that these API integrations are enabling small traders on remote places to offer digital payment solutions, and not only that, to access to credit scoring solutions that will help them to get access to more credit, right? And we know that more credit obviously contributes to people and businesses to get better opportunities and to reach prosperity, right? So for small businesses, what we are seeing also with these solutions is that they can have a better control of their finance. And for example, we can see that it trends to less errors, less mistakes, human mistakes, when all this can be automated. And obviously, by having a better control of their finance, and they have an improvement in their overall performance, right? These SMEs.
I love
also.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I love how also when you mention it's thousands of islands, one of the things I didn't think of was actually, so if you had to do some serious banking or some serious finance stuff, you've got to plan your whole week around that sort of, at least, because it's about like, okay, I've got to maybe go from this island to another island. It's costs to stay overnight somewhere, all of those things. And you're saying that is all reduced, all of that disappears,
Exactly.
and then, right.
Exactly. I mean, that is one of the things that we are identifying as a value generated. The reduced business failure, that reduce the risk of business failure.
Right.
When you have a clear and zero-like process, there you will find less risk to have a failure, right, in your business. Also, the next level that we are seeing is at Bank BRI level.
Yep.
What we are seeing, and we can see it in the case, is that this is contributing to them to revenue growth, right? So we can see not only a 50 million revenue growth, but we can also see that this means an increase in customer acquisition, right? Because they have access to remote places now. So and another important benefit that we're looking in this case is that they have reduced the partners onboarding also, and that is very interesting because then the time to market of this and the inception of the value into the economy and society is much quicker. Maybe it can be done in one day as opposed to maybe weeks or months before, no?
Right. Wow. Yeah, great. And I love when you mentioned that new users and the 50 million it's generating. It's a little bit like what Jose was saying about the younger generation, because this is in a similar way, like younger generation, it's like they're digitized and they want to get the services digitally. And whereas in some of the BRI's customer base, it's more like digitization's been introduced. And now they want to, and now that they've got that digital infrastructure, they want to be able to use it for their day-to-day, business activities. Yeah. So different audiences, but still the same impact of that sort of digitization process.
Right. And as Jose mentioned earlier, and I think this is the key, these API integrations are creating win-win scenarios everywhere.
Right.
I mean, of course, there are downsides. Of course, there are still challenges, but it is very clear how all the parts are winning with this automation and this digitization.
What about, so then just to wrap up, any sort of, if you were using this case study in your talks with banks, with your partners, with fintech, what would be the recommendations, or what can others learn from Bank BRI specific, that you would point to in case they missed it in the case study or in our discussion? What's a little sum up of why this is a great use case for a great case study for them to follow? Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, me too. I will take this one. Yeah, I think that I'm always recommending all my customers, if you want to start embracing the API journey, no matter the use case, is put the focus on governance, especially if you are going to build a business case on top of API products. So my insight will be put the focus on governance.
Great. Jose, what about you when you're talking to other bank colleagues and they're like, I'm not sure if we should have a credit scoring API as a paid service or whatever, or it's talking about APIs generally? What would you do?
Well, it's true. It's tricky because that the open banking or embedded finance, which is my team, we're not really popular with our colleagues in the bank. You just need to understand that the open and banking in the same phrase was not even together like a few years ago.
Yeah.
So traditional bankers realized that this is part of disintermediating the banks. somehow from the customers.
Right.
And it's true. It's true. But what we always tell them to convince them is this is happening, no matter you want or not.
Right.
And actually, you can think in Nokia. Remember Nokia, the telephone? They say, okay, I don't trust really the smartphone. Fine, but it was happening. They didn't realize,
Yeah.
and now they are out of the race. So in banks, it will happen the very same. So it's not fighting against the giants. It's about getting to be part of the ecosystem. So you have to make the best of the opportunity, not fight against it.
It's so
And that
funny
applies
though,
to any
because
single case.
yeah, it's so funny though,
Absolutely.
because they say, oh, you know, they don't want to look at it in their bank, and then they go home and they get online, they buy something online themselves, you know, like, so it's sort of that disconnect. Yeah. Good luck. I mean, I know you've been at the frontier of encouraging that mindset shift. So we hope these podcasts help. Thanks everyone for coming, for joining us today, and we'll be back with a series of these case studies and some use cases as well for open banking and open finance. It's been a pleasure to chat with you all. Thanks, Mariana. Thanks, David. Thanks, Jose.
Thank you, everybody.